Hello friends, this is our third lecture on Mathew Arnold's The Study of Poetry. Now today you can see the title of today's lecture is Poetry, the Breath and Final Spirit of All Knowledge. This is a quotation from Wordsworth, quoted by Mathew Arnold. So it is, what is poetry? This is the breath and final spirit of all knowledge, and therefore charlatanism has absolutely no scope, no entry into the judgment, evaluation, and also, of course, writing of poetry. So Mathew Arnold says that we must conceive of poetry more worthily and more highly. This is the first thing. Conceive of poetry more worthily and more highly. More worthily. Understand? And more highly. That's one thing. So we should conceive of poetry as more worthily and more highly than it has been the custom to conceive it. So usually when we read poetry, what do? We take it light now. It's okay, poetry. Poetry class. And you say, oh, that's an enjoyment. But literary criticism, it's very serious. So he says, don't do like that. Take it light. Consider it as capable of higher uses. See, I'm called to higher destinies. So this is something that I told you yesterday also. So higher uses and higher destinies. In other words, in a higher pedestal. And keep poetry in a very high pedestal, because it has got, the future of poetry is immense. Yesterday also I told you this. The future of poetry is immense. Higher uses and higher destinies. That's first point to note here. That is, mankind will discover that it has to turn to poetry to interpret life. So the only branch of knowledge. So that is the second point. Consider it more worthily and more highly because of its higher uses, higher destinies. Higher destinies. That's one thing. Secondly is poetry is the only true knowledge. Mankind will discover that it has to turn to poetry to interpret life for us, to console us, to sustain us. So poetry has three functions according to him. He says, poetry, you have to turn to poetry for interpret life. See, console us and then sustain us. Sustainable development, So this has sustain us. So that is, again you find the high value of poetry, the high uses of poetry, the high destiny of poetry, the high pedestal on which you should keep poetry. It says you have to turn to poetry for interpreting life, for consoling, to console us, and to sustain us. And third point is that without poetry, science will appear incomplete. Scientific knowledge will become incomplete. And religion and philosophy will be replaced by poetry. Science will become again the high value. Science incomplete. And religion, what will happen to religion? Even religion, to see that religion and philosophy will be replaced by poetry. Religion and philosophy replaced by poetry. So the that the only knowledge that is going to remain eternal, the only knowledge that will remain forever is poetry. Because religion will be replaced and also philosophy will be replaced. Science will have no, science will appear incomplete. Therefore Wordsworth says, again a quotation, Wordsworth says, the impassioned expression of which is in the countenance of all sciences, that is poetry. It is the impassioned expression. According to, already we have quoted Wordsworth, now one more quotation. It is the impassioned expression of, poetry is the impassioned expression which is in the countenance of all sciences. The impassioned expression. The impassioned expression which is in the countenance, means face, of all sciences. So this is another definition. So by Wordsworth, it's an impassioned expression which is in the countenance of all sciences. And again he says, it is the breadth and final spirit of all knowledge. What more do you want? So religion and philosophy are the shadows. Religion and philosophy are dreams. Religion and philosophy are false shows of knowledge. The shadows, they are dreams and they are false shows, SHOWs, not source but shows of knowledge. They are, once mankind comes to know about the hollowness, once you perceive the hollowness of science and religion, the more we shall perceive, or the more we shall see the breadth and the final spirit of all knowledge, that is poetry. Understand that? So the focus is on poetry. Religions will be replaced. Philosophy will be replaced. Philosophy and religion, they are shadows. They are shadows. They are dreams. They are false shows of knowledge. And once you perceive this, mankind will turn to poetry. So again the high destiny and the high standard is again and again stressing this point. That probably the only poet, the only critic so far we can say, who stresses the importance, the high destiny and the high uses of poetry is Mathew Arnold. Mathew Arnold. So that's why we say he is the foremost critic of 19th century. Maybe third as a poet, but first as a critic. Understand? Therefore he says, poetry should be, since it has to fulfill high destinies and high standards, its future is immense. Therefore, high order of excellence to fulfill such high destinies. There should be, poetry should be of high order of excellence. Poetry should be high order of excellence to fulfill such high destinies. So there he is underlining that, the standard, the classic. Even in his touchstone method, further when we will look at that, then you will see that according to his touchstone method, Chaucer is not a great poet. Chaucer is not a classic. His touchstone poets are Homer, Dante, Shakespeare and Milton. Milton, whom later you can see T.S. Eliot did not give much value. That's another thing, let's forget about that. Don't get into complication. Okay, high destiny, high standard. So therefore, poetry should have a high order of excellence. Isn't it? For example, what a general can do, an ordinary soldier cannot do. compare poetry as the commander-in-chief of an army. And then other sciences, let us say like an ordinary soldier. Can an ordinary soldier perform the excellent work or the stupendous task assigned to a general, a commander? No. So exactly like that, poetry is assigned a stupendous task. Poetry is assigned a great destiny. Therefore, it has to be. Suppose a commander-in-chief of an army becomes mediocre, he cannot do anything. Therefore, the high order of excellence should be, you must give to, or those who write poems. So that's the important thing. I hope you understand this, what I told you just now. High standard poetry should be strictly judged and evaluated. First, there will be a high order of excellence. Second, there should be the destiny, so high standard should be in judging and evaluating. Therefore, there is absolutely no entry to charlatanism. Charlatanism. And what is charlatanism? Charlatanism is, it creates a confusion in judging what is best. It presents before a confused mind. A person who is suffering from, inverted commas, charlatanism, you can say he is confused. He cannot judge what is best. Understand? So charlatanism confuses and obliterates the distinction between, or difference between, what is excellent and what is inferior. What is sound and unsound or half sound. What is true and untrue and half true. So that means it is a kind of hot word. So there is a confusion there. Charlatanism leads you to confusion. You do not know which is best. But here, it's important for us to decide to judge the best. Why? Because it has high order of excellence and it has got high destinies. It has got higher uses. It is to poetry that mankind will have to turn for consolation, for sustaining his life, for interpreting his life, for knowing his life. Because all the other branches of knowledge, including religion, philosophy, even culture, your rituals, these things will disappear or will be replaced. That's what. So charlatanism absolutely no scope. So what is charlatanism? We have already seen. A confusion. A troubled waters. You are in a troubled waters. You don't see things, what is excellent and what is inferior. And then he later in the essay you will find, he gives 3 passages. One passage is taken from Chanson de Roland. Chanson de Roland. See, considered to be an epic. It has got all the paraphernalia of an epic genius. So Roland is wounded, the situation. He is wounded. He is lying, mortally wounded, under a pine tree, turning his face to Spain and his enemies. See? And then what happens is the thoughts that come to his mind, the wounded, and also he is thinking about he remembers his achievements. He remembers his lord and liege who supported him. And the poet describes in these lines the mortally wounded Chanson de Roland. He says, then began he to call many things to remembrance. I will write this down for you. You also please Write along with me. Then began he to call many things to remembrance. Then began he to call many things to remembrance. Then began he, at what time? Mortally wounded, facing towards Spain and also his enemies. Then began he to call many things to remembrance, and the lands which his valor conquered, and the lands he is remembering which his valor conquered. VALOUR. And the lands which is well conquered, and the pleasant France, and men of his lineage, and the pleasant France, and the men of his lineage. Men of his lineage. So he is thinking, if these things he is bringing to his mind. He sees these things in his mind's eye. The mortally wounded mortally wounded Roland, and Charlemagne, his liege and lord. So he remembers, and Charlemagne, his liege and lord. His liege and lord. The mortally wounded Roland in his mind, he sees. And then liege and lord, who nourished him. So beautiful lines, very beautiful lines, so that you can see the dying man, what he sees in the mirror of his mind. Then began he to call many things to remembrance. He is lying almost half dead, looking his face towards Spain and his enemies. And then began he to call many things to remembrance, and the lands which his valor conquered, and the present France, and the men of his lineage, and Charlemagne, his liege and lord, who nourished him. And then he gives side by side. So this is immediately what will you say? Oh, the best. The best. And you say, La Belle Dame Sancy, the opening of La Belle Dame Sancy, you remember the opening, no? That is, it opens, what ails thee, night at dawns, alone and palely loitering, the surges wither from the lake, and no birds sing. Oh, what a fantastic atmosphere is created there. Of epic proportions, you can say. I can say like that. See, I can say, you can say, many other people can say. But it has nothing to do with an epic. Or it has nothing to do with the high seriousness of poetry. See that? Or higher uses of poetry. So this is the difference. Confused, you are confused. And then he says in Iliad, he says, the poets, when the poet mentions to Helen about her brothers, there is the comment, the poet's comment. So said she. I will change the color. So the poet, Helen is in Troy. And then there is the mention of, on Helen's mention of her brothers. The poet's comment on Helen's mention of her brothers. See, Helen remembers her brothers. And then what is her? Here is this is a remembrance. Now Helen's remembrance you can see. What does it say? So said she. So said she. This is not the original, this is translation. They long since in earth's soft arms were reposing. They long since in earth's they long since in earth's soft arms were reposing, means resting. So just say that remembrance. See, so the soft arms were resting. She says. Then says there in their own dear land, fatherland, Lasdom. So then he says there in their, see, there in their own dear lands, there in their own dear lands, fatherlands, dear land, fatherlands, La Si Domain, last domain. See that? Just 2 lines. Their fatherland, last domain. See the 2 lines here. Compare these 2. And Mathew Arnold says, this is classic. Sure, it has got all the paraphernalia or qualities of an epic genius. But you cannot say. So when you get a passage like this, what do you do? Charlatanism will confuse you. So this is what is meant by charlatanism in action. You have got these 2. You want one more passage? Dandy, Ugolino, Dandy. The words of Ugolino. Ugolino in Inferno. And what does he say? I wailed not. So of stone I grew within. I wailed not. I wailed not. So of stone I grew within. They wailed. They wailed. Wailed means cry. See this, the hardened minds. They wailed. So you can see, compare these 3 passages, then you will know what harm charlatanism can do to you. Compare these passages. The terrible harm that charlatanism can do to a critic in evaluating and also in judging. Judging and evaluating. So if you look at these passages, if you are affected by charlatanism, you will say, oh, this is wonderful. Then next year comes this passage, you will say, oh, this is also wonderful. Huh? Then you say, this is again wonderful. But he says, Mathew Arnold says, there is absolutely no scope for charlatanism in judging and also in evaluating. You have to see, this is okay. This is classic. See the difference. Here it is a kind of concatenation. And it speaks the ambit and the ambience is so narrow. See, for example, it doesn't suggest anything. Then began he to call many things to remember. An ordinary person also can do like that. And the lands which his valor conquered, and the pleasant France, and the men of his lineage, and Charlemagne his legion lord, who nourished it. Okay, as I told you in the beginning now, what ails thee night terms? See, compare that to April is the coolest month. Alright, don't compare that. Compare April is the coolest month with one that April with the shooting. Chosen. Which one you think that it is great poetry? Is it April is the coolest month or when that April? This is a narration. Something that anybody can do. See? But when you say April is the coolest month, it falls upon you as a thunderbolt from somewhere. You are questioned. You immediately feel that why April is the coolest month. That is great poetry, my dear friends. That is great poetry. You can't resist it. So here this, when you compare this is inferior. And these two are much, much superior. Not because Mathew has said it or I want to support this. See, imagine. See this, Ugolino says, I wail not. So what happened? So of stone I grew within. I wail not. So of stone I grew within. My heart had become a hardened rock. I could not. That is, they wailed. I could not. Understand? Like, remember, home they brought her warrior dead, Tennyson's poem. She could not cry. Petrified. In how many words? One, to be very frank, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, half a dozen words. Half a dozen words, like great poetry you have in Othello. No? Othello, Barbancio and his followers come shouting at Othello. And then Othello says, keep up your bright swords for the dew will rust them. Oh. What a line is that? Keep up your bright swords for the dew will rust them. And here also you see, so said she. The mention of her brothers, she said, they long since in earth's soft arms were reposing. Then, there in their own dear land, fatherland, Lacedaemon. And this is a remembrance, this is another remembrance. Now you judge. If you are unable to judge, that is, you are affected by charlatanism. That's a fallacy. Listen, that is charlatan. This is charlatan. Inability to judge. Confused. You should not be confused. Confused, so you are unable to differentiate between excellent and inferior, sound and unsound or half sound, true or untrue or half true. I hope now you understand what is charlatanism. Now, when you suppose you get questions like this, you will definitely get for the UGC or your interview and so on, no? You will get it. What is charlatanism? What will be your answer? Charlatanism is a confusion. Charlatanism is a state of mind where you are totally confused, you are unable to differentiate between the excellent and the inferior. The true and untrue and half true. See, the sound and unsound and half sound. That is all. And this thing has no scope in poetry. And then he continues, he says that this is an area. Thought and art, there is a noble portion of man's being. Thought and art, noble portion of man's being. In poetry, thought and art are one. And so, what happens? This noble sphere should be kept inviolate and inviolable. Two words. This noble sphere, what is this noble sphere? Thought and art. Thought and art. There is a organic confluence of thought and art in poetry. So thought and art is the most noble portion of man's being, and thought and art should be kept inviolable and inviolate. Don't allow charlatanism to come and spoil this area. Just as we have got a reserve forest now, where you are not allowed to enter without permission. Here, it is more than that. You cannot say reserved forest, it is a closed forest, where charlatanism has absolutely no scope. So he continues, he says, now we are dealing only with this one point, and that is the final, the breath and final spirit of all knowledge, that is poetry. So that is thought and art. Thought and art together you have got in poetry. Therefore poetry is man's, that noble portion of man's being, and therefore your charlatanism has no scope there. So in poetry, noble kept inviolate. Consolation and stay, again I will see that. In poetry our race will find its consolation and stay. So you see, yesterday also we said the same thing. The consolation and stay will be of power, that's the point. The consolation and stay will be of power as to the power of the criticism of life. Say when you are given shelter, if you are given shelter in an AC room, and if you are given shelter in an open room, say a bus stand, what will be the difference? So the consolation and your shelter, the feeling of shelter, or the consolation and stay is in accordance with the degree of the power. It will be, what will happen is, the quality also will be dependent on that. Therefore, poetry will give you consolation and stay. If it is a powerful one, the best one, the excellent one, your consolation and stay will be excellent. If it is inferior, as I told you just now, if you are given a bungalow and the best stand, a bench in the best stand, that is also consolation and stay. You have no place, best stand. What I mean is normal best stand, not AC best stand. See that? So that is. Or we have got the waiting rooms like that. So the power and the excellence of your stay and consolation will depend on the power and the excellence of the poetry that interprets life. And therefore he says, charlatanism has no scope here. So the best poetry will have the power of forming, sustaining, delighting us as nothing else can. Underline. So what is it? The best poetry, what is the touchstone to find out which is the best poetry? You have got the best poetry will have the power of forming, sustaining and delighting. Three things. Forming, sustaining and delighting. Delighting. So this is forming, sustaining and delighting. Delighting what? Delighting us. As nothing else can. Nisi, in Latin we say, nisi. Nothing as, nothing else can. So we have seen what is poetry, higher uses of poetry, high destination of poetry, therefore poetry should be of high standard. Judgment also should be of high standard. Therefore there is absolutely no scope for charlatanism. Charlatanism means a kind of confusion affecting the mind, which makes the mind makes the mind unable to distinguish between or differentiate between excellent and inferior, sound and unsound, and half sound, true and half true and untrue. Then he says poetry is the only consolation and stay. The consolation and stay depends on the quality. So poetry delights us, sustains us, and also delights us, sustains us, and forms us as nothing else can. So that is the main point today. Higher uses of poetry, high judgment, value should be high, so no charlatanism. Hope you have been following. Thank you very much for listening. We will meet again in our next class. Till then, bye.